Oktoberfests, birthday fests, finally, raked fests. Whatever fest they're celebrating this fall, give them gifts that they'll actually want, like drinks. And get them all from Drizzly, an app for alcohol delivery. With Drizzly, you can compare prices on bountiful cornucopias of beer, wine, and spirits, then get them all delivered to their door, or the pile of leaves they're sitting in. So download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com and get gifting today.
Hey, this is Megan and Stacy with another What We're Cooking and Eating Now episode just for you. In addition to our regular weekly episodes, twice a month we give you a real-time rundown of what we're cooking and eating with our families.
In each of these episodes, we'll walk you all the way through one recipe and then list 5 others. So all together, you get 6 easy weeknight dinners that we've tested. Usually we like them and our kids like them.
Or we talk about what we would do again. Ones. Or why we'll never be cooking something again.
But the idea is that you can use this as inspiration for your meal plan for this week or next week right away. Like, put it into action. We share all the links for the recipes that we mention in each of these episodes in our free community. You can join by going to didn'tijustfeedyou.com/community. You do have to enter your email. It comes to us. We keep it private. We don't share it with anybody. And then, like, you have access to this community, a board, people asking questions. I saw that someone was asking about how to use up a whole bunch of leftover smoked tri-tip the other day, and everybody jumped in with ideas. It's a fabulous place to be. And then you also get links to all the recipes that we're going to mention today.
Yes, and they're pinned. The document where they live is pinned right at the top of the community. So, like, you don't even have to go digging for it. It's super helpful. Okay, Stacy, the weather has like completely changed since the last time we did a What We're Cooking and Eating Now. Completely. Well, because it was funny, like in a few episodes, we've talked about how like I was cooking more fall focused foods or more fall feeling foods, and you were still like in the tail end of summer. So I'm wondering, does it feel like fall for you now? And what's the cooking mood in your house? And what have you been cooking this week?
Yes, fall has arrived. So I have one thing that I'm going to mention that's like super fall forward, but I'm going to start with something that isn't necessarily like quintessential fall flavors, but is a nice, creamy, cozy pasta, which I think has fall vibes. And this is one that I'll walk you guys through. So I made jerk chicken pasta. Okay. So I actually saw a recipe. I didn't follow it because I've made this before and it's really easy to riff. I'm going to walk you through how I do it. But I did see a recipe in the New York Times for Rasta pasta. New York City has a huge Jamaican population. So like we love going to get Jamaican food. And in lots of places, it is called Rasta pasta. It's basically jerk chicken pasta. Some places you can get a vegetarian version, but I feel weird.
Why? I think that's like
Rasta pasta.
Literally what we were talking about before recording, like the marketing of recipes, right? And or like wellness stuff too is what we were specifically talking about. But I have one of those this week too. Like Rasta pasta is fun to say. It's easy marketing, and like you kind of know what you're getting when you say that. So, jerk chicken pasta.
So I feel like if you're Jamaican and you call it Rasta pasta, that's fine. I, as a white lady, am just going to call mine jerk chicken pasta because that's what it is. Not going to call it Rasta pasta. But I'm actually sharing this because if you feel like you want a specific recipe, which for these episodes, if you haven't listened before, we tend to walk you through one thing that we think is easy enough for you to cook recipe free. So there won't be a link to this. But if you decide like, oh, that sounds really good, I need more specificity, and you want to do a little bit of a Google search, you can look for jerk chicken pasta. You might want to also look for Rasta pasta because there are some Jamaican food bloggers and writers who will refer to it as Rasta pasta. So I felt like I needed to give that, but maybe I didn't. I don't know. I just want to make sure people know how to find it.
That is perfect and lovely. And I'm sorry I sidetracked us with talking about marketing. We want to know how to make it.
So no, it is. It's marketing. Okay. So there are a couple of ways you can approach this. You can buy dry jerk seasoning, which is going to be a combination of like dry thyme and smoked paprika and like all this stuff, all these great dry spices, and it can be a rub. You can look up a jerk seasoning rub and create one. I prefer a wet jerk seasoning, and I like the brand Walker's. The one little note I'm going to say about Walker's, which, you know, I can provide a link to find it on Amazon. I can find it in my supermarket, but I don't know if that's because we have such a big Jamaican population in New York City. But Walker's has a mild jerk seasoning, and then they have a spicy. And I'm just going to say, mild Walker's is Jamaican mild. Like, it is not super mild. Like, it's got a little bite to it. So my family can tolerate it, but it's a little bit on the edge for Oliver. He loves the flavor, so he goes with it, but he's like, whoo, like the whole time while we were eating. He's like, oh, whoo. Spicy.
That reminds me of the time you put too much red pepper flake in Instant Pot pasta. And you tried to tell Oliver that it wasn't spicy.
Lies.
Just listen, lies. That's how you get him to the spicy Walker's jerk spice. A little bit at a time. Yeah, you gotta build up the
little bit at a time. A little bit at a time plus lies. So I take my jerk seasoning and I toss, like, I use chicken breast. I actually use chicken breast tenders this time. And I just toss it with a little bit of oil, a little bit of the jerk seasoning. It can be the dry or the wet. And I threw that into my air fryer while I cooked penne. I cook penne according to the package instructions, like cooking it like 3 minutes fewer than directed. I save a big mug full of water and then I drain my pasta. While the pasta's sitting in the colander, I go back to the emptied pot and I saute sliced red peppers, about 3 of them, an entire bunch of scallions, and a little bit more jerk seasoning. I just saute that up until the red peppers are just a little bit tender, a little bit soft. The scallions are fragrant. Then I add cream, heavy cream, some pasta cooking water, about a cup of it. And then I stir that up. That makes a sauce. I put the pasta back in. And then I add a load of grated Parmesan cheese. Take the chicken out of the air fryer, chop it up, throw it in, toss it all together, and we're done. It's delicious.
For your family, which you have like 3 tall humans in addition to yourself who you're feeding, are you doing like 1 16-ounce box of pasta and like a pound of chicken or like more chicken?
Great question. So I do a pound of pasta, which if I don't have another, like chickpeas or animal protein is like on the edge of being enough for us. But I air fried 2 pounds of chicken tenders. And I would say that I used about 1.5 pounds of chicken in the pasta. So there's like a lot of chicken and like 3 whole red peppers. So there's like a lot that's bulking the pasta up. And then we had like some chicken tenders left that I used to make like quesadillas as snacks one day. And I threw some in a salad for myself for lunch one day.
Yum.
So that's how I used up the extra. So 2 pounds chicken, 1 pound pasta, a whole bunch of scallions, 3 red peppers, and then that Walker's jerk seasoning, a thing of cream. That's all you need.
And was this like the deli burgers where like you served this up to Isaac and he was like, yeah, I'd rather just have it as Rasta pasta at the restaurant, or did they eat it up?
No, they eat it. And Walker's is good shiz. I love it. It has really great flavor. I feel like it has a little bit, you know, like real jerk that's been like cooked in a smoker. Also has that smoky flavor to it. And like you can't quite replicate that when you're just cooking at home
in the
with
air
jerk
fryer.
Seasoning.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Walker's does have a little bit of smokiness to it. So it's great. And my kids grew up eating, like one of Isaac's first foods when he was young was jerk pork, because our nanny of many years, who we're still very close with, Jenny, is from Jamaica. And Jenny will still to this day, when she goes to Jamaica, she'll bring jerk pork back, or she used to have it FedEx to her from her family. And then she would share jerk pork with Isaac.
Yes.
Who
So it's
loved
like
it.
a little nostalgic for him too. Oh, I love that so
Totally.
much.
It's a total comfort food. It's a total comfort
Okay,
food.
what else did you feed the fam this week?
Okay. So another thing that I made that I didn't think was going to be good, and Megan, it was so good.
You made something, but you didn't think it was going to be good, or like you didn't think it was going to pass
I did.
muster.
Okay, let me explain. I thought it was going to be one of those light meals that I like that nobody else was going to like, and that it wasn't going to quite be enough or satisfying, or that like sometimes the promise of these really easy meals, you're like, oh, this looks great. This is the kind of quick, easy meal I love. And then you eat it and you're like, this is just eggs on rice and it's kind of boring. And or it feels like a snack. But Genevieve Co. and New York Times developed a recipe called toasted coconut rice with bok choy and fried eggs. So my kids are really into fried eggs on rice right now, but it's usually like the leftover rice that's steamed in the rice cooker and just some eggs. They break it up, soy sauce, chili crisp. It's a snack. It's not really dinner. But in this recipe, which we'll link to, you use coconut oil to make the coconutty rice. And at first I was like, I want more coconut. Like, I'm going to use coconut milk instead of water. And then, like, I ran out of coconut milk and I didn't realize. Either way, I cooked it as written and it came out fantastic. And it is so convenient because you cook the rice and then you take the bok choy and green beans and you put it on top of the rice towards the end of cooking and cover the pot so that while the rice finishes cooking, the vegetables are steaming. And then you just fry a couple of eggs and you do it all together with a little bit of like whatever you want, chili crisp or soy sauce. It was so full of flavor and delicious. My kids were really into it. I was very surprised.
My smile that no one else can see is like, this is like your 2020 version of Eric Kim's sheep ham bibimbap.
Yes.
It's like not like that it's a replacement, because I know sometimes you still cook that, but like it's all the things you love. It's like flavorful rice, there's a fried egg, there's like easy veggies. And here at least you're not getting the promise of like just using one sheet pan, but actually having to like fry eggs or cook beef separately. You're like just really using two pans. So I kind of love that. Okay, what else did you cook this week?
Okay, last thing. Okay, ooh, I like this. It's not controversial at all. I just want to stir the pot. I had some plums from the last time I was at the country, which was like a week and a half before I cooked it. I got plums from the farm. It was great. And they were like really about to go. It was time to use the plums. I thought I was going to bake something. So I went on to New York Times Cooking and I just looked up plums and a recipe from Allison Roman came up. And I was like, ooh, do I cook Allison Roman recipes anymore? I do. I'm just joking. But it's a recipe called pork chops with salted plums that looked really easy. And I was like, this looks great. I ended up adapting the recipe a little bit. Instead of doing pork chops, I bought pork loins that I just rubbed with salt, pepper, a little bit of grainy mustard and olive oil. And I put those in the air fryer. And then I mixed up the plum mixture that she calls for, which is heavy on red onions and these plums that are cut up, and you salt them and they're tangy because of like vinegar or lime. I can't remember. I think rice wine vinegar is what it is. Either way, her recipe calls for cooking the pork chops and then adding the plums to the pan while the pork chops are resting, just so they get like a tiny bit of heat. I didn't even do that. I literally took the pork loins out of the air fryer. And I took the plums and onions that I let sit for a little while, but because there was high acidic like content in the mixture, the plums softened and the red onion softened, and I skipped putting them on the heat, and everybody really liked it. It was great. So that's a little like variation if you want to cook it that way, or you can cook it as is. The flavors were bomb.
I have to ask two clarifying questions. One is, did you use pork loin or pork tenderloin? Because I think that those two sometimes get intermixed and like
they
different.
do.
Yeah.
Great.
Tenderloin, which are like the longer, smaller, quick cooking. We love those for weeknight meals. And then pork loin, there's actually an interesting conversation in the listeners group about that as a way that someone saves money. They like buy an actual pork loin and slice it into chops, or like use it cut up when they need pork because it's relatively inexpensive. And then the second thing
Yes,
I feel like
totally.
we should clarify on is like why you wouldn't. Like, I feel like it's like insider baseball of why you wouldn't cook an Allison Roman recipe, especially if someone's new to Didn't I Just Feed You?
She was canceled. No, she really wasn't. I don't know. She was like, she went viral for, I don't even remember now, but it was something that was a recipe similar to the stew. I was going to say it was dal, but it wasn't dal. It was a chickpea stew. And basically, like, everybody was like, this is
it's whitewashing.
Like a traditional South Asian chickpea stew. Like, why didn't you call it what it is? Yes, they accused her of whitewashing. And I think for me, the bigger problem was how she handled herself afterwards. That she just seemed to have a really hard time coming to grips with that. And I think actually the stew went viral, and that was one thing. But didn't we go back to the stew once she said something about Chrissy Teigen?
Yeah, it was Chrissy Teigen and also another Asian American, Marie Kondo, maybe. She like insulted both of them in an interview. And it was just interesting how she sort of like co-opts that like cultures and turns them into like more Americanized, more air quotes approachable recipes, but then like also insulted these other women in an interview. So we don't have to get into all that.
All right, go. I think you should start with.
Let me start.
You know what recipe I think you should start with?
aka taco pockets. We had this whole funny little conversation before we started recording, and it's funny because I did not know you were going to bring up Rasta pasta, and then I was like, wait, this is like the same thing. You're like, I'm going to call it jerk chicken pasta. Whereas like I still want to honor it as a pupusa recipe, even though I couldn't find chorizo. And so I ended up using like taco meat, and I totally told my kids that it was taco pockets. And then I feel so dumb that I told them that, but it's like, it's marketing. I was trying to get them to enjoy it. I've made arepas so many times. This is one of those recipes. I wrote an arepas recipe for thekitchen.com before I knew better than to say, no, I should not be writing this. But I've never made pupusas, and I think of them, like, I think you've mentioned them in other episodes before, and I've been like, oh, that's too much effort for a weeknight. But then the Grill Dads shared a video of, like, them making pupusas, and I was like, oh, if those two idiots could do it. Just kidding, Mark and Faye, I love you so much. So I made them, but I couldn't find Mexican chorizo just in my like one grocery store I stopped at.
Yeah.
I know I found it before without having to like specialty order it or anything. I feel like in Boise it was more available. But anyways, so I used ground meat. I did like tacos-ish seasoning on it and just did like a one-time batch. And they were really good. My family really enjoyed them. And Brian wanted peppers and onions, and I didn't want to do like a whole separate veg for the kids. So I did like peppers and onions and green beans as a little saute on the side.
Are you going to link to the Grill Dads version?
Link to the Grill Dads version.
Okay.
I also have seen like Simply Recipes has published one this week, and I feel like that is truly correctly sourced. So maybe we'll share that one as well. But they're there's kind of, it's like equal parts the masa harina, water and salt to make the dough, and then it's really just like technique and filling that make them distinct. And so then another thing I made this week, and this is like a little bit reminding me of the like plum pork loin recipe where it's like there was like kind of several components and maybe it sounded like a lot of dishes. I made from Southern Living. I like legitimately pulled the sheet out of the magazine. Sheet pan, broccoli, and chicken casserole. You know, like the cheesy rice, that sort of like classic cheesy rice, chicken, broccoli casserole. It was like that with the promise of being even better. Because you made it in a sheet pan, so it was like a better ratio of like crispy.
That's so smart.
It was a huge pain in the ass. I think the idea is that you like use leftover rice, which I didn't have. So like I cooked rice, and like you're supposed to use rotisserie chicken, but like I had chicken breasts that needed to be used up, so I cooked the chicken breast separately, and then it's like I mixed all the things together in the skillet, like the rice and the broccoli and all that, and like then I still had to pour it into the sheet pan and like dirty sheet pan, and I was just like, oh my god, this is so dumb. I will probably make it again because it was really delicious. But I just need to like either have like some Success boil-in bag rice or leftover rice and like actually buy the rotisserie chicken. That's one of those things where I was like looked at the recipe and was like, oh, I'll get the stuff to make this. And then later was like, oh, actually, like I got chicken and I got rice, but like I didn't really read through the recipe.
Got it. Oh, wait, I have to say before you tell us your third, for the record, the pork tenderloin and sweet and tangy plums was actually not a lot of dishes at all. It was really
Maybe it was
easy.
more the like, well, one, I think anytime you dirty the air fryer is like a little bit more labor because it's like a little bit harder to
Oh my
clean.
gosh. Really? My air fryer is all nonstick. My air fryer is the easiest thing to clean ever.
Okay.
I like love it. Every time I cook things in the air fryer when I want easy cleanup.
Okay. See, that's like a weird, like maybe it's like a weird mental block for me. But all that to say, I made a lot of dishes with this one recipe.
Okay.
I wasn't trying to drag any of your recipes, but there was something you were explaining and I was like, oh, that sounds like you dirtied like several pots. But
no, definitely not. But yes, it does sound like that with the sheep and broccoli.
Yes, so many. And also, I want to be clear that it's the way I made it, not how the recipe is written specifically. So we will link to it because I think that there is a like effort reward ratio of like the crispy breadcrumbs and Parmesan that you put on top. That's really good. And it's like all those like creamy rice and cheese and broccoli. So good.
Okay. What's the last thing you made?
Last thing I made was I had leftovers of our 5-can chili, which is a recipe we just published for our recipe subscribers. And so I made jacket potatoes, which are basically just like baked potatoes, but you bake them at a lower temperature for longer. And so they get really fluffy inside and really crispy on the outside. And we had like baked potatoes with chili, which I just want to like be really clear. I love that. Brian loves that. But our kids basically eat like the baked potato separate and then like a little bowl of chili on the side. Like they're not down with the combo and like all the stuff on top. They want it like buttered baked potato, plain broccoli, chili, no cheese even. I don't know. What is have I not taught my kids properly how to eat chili? I don't know.
That's how I felt for years when my kids didn't like macaroni and cheese. I was like, I have clearly failed. Anyway, that sounds delicious. We've gone way over our 15 minutes this week, but hopefully there's a lot of ideas and you have a lot of detail. So I'm going to take us right out if that's okay with you.
Do it.
All right. You guys, this bi-monthly series is thanks in part to the generous support of our Didn't I Just Feed You supporting membership. A huge shout out to them. We love you guys. You can find out more about becoming a supporting member at didn'tijustfeedyou.com/community. And if it's not the right time for you, then just don't worry. Like just listening supports us too.
Yeah, you can always leave a rating and a review wherever you listen. A huge thank you also to our producer, Samantha Gatzik. Thanks for listening. Stay sane and well fed. Until next time.